Hey everyone, it's Scarlett. So wonderful for you to join today. I wanted to do a little mini workshop on the choice moment model because it's relatively new to choose love and it's such a big, important part of being able to put this incredible formula into practice to be the best versions of ourselves. And so I'm going to share my slides now so we can go over the choice moment model and how to use it every day in our lives and model it for our kids. So, when we process information as human beings, it's pretty interesting. This information comes in, this data through our five senses, in through really our reptilian or our fear center first. So, our fear center, interestingly, is 4 times faster at processing information than our prefrontal cortex. Now, our prefrontal cortex is where our executive functioning is, kind of our highest and best self, but also the brake on our instinctual reactions. Interesting, right? Now, why would the fear center be 4 times faster when the brake is in our prefrontal cortex? And of course, it's simply because our brain's number one job is to keep us safe. It's not really that concerned about our happiness. It wants to keep us safe. So, information flows through the brain, through the fear center first. And then a little while later, if our fear center has decided that it is not harmful, by the way, physically or emotionally, it allows that information to go up to our prefrontal cortex, where our critical thinking and problem solving is. Very interesting. And I wanted to start this off with that because the choice moment model is designed to help us work within this framework and get that information up to our prefrontal cortex, where our highest and best self and where we're in control of the situation. So we know our personal power as human beings is in our ability to choose from moment to moment how we thoughtfully respond. We get to do that. We don't always remember. Our brains are wired to defend us, really, to keep us safe, right? So when somebody gives us that look or cuts us off or says something that's not nice, what does our brain do? Immediately puts up our metaphorical dukes, sometimes the real dukes. And so, but usually during the day, our lives aren't in danger. These are just hurt people hurting people, people going through stuff and maybe behaving not exceptionally. And so, we want to maintain our control. We don't want to give our control to somebody who, is having a hard time and not behaving well. So, our personal powers and our ability to choose. This is a really, really important concept. And by the way, one that we have to remind ourselves every single day, even if you're sitting there going, well, she doesn't know my situation. You know what? It doesn't matter. We still are in control and we can choose a thoughtful response of love, of course. This is the whole point is to thoughtfully respond with love from our highest and best self. So we can always choose what happens to us. We can't always choose what happens to us, but we can choose how we thoughtfully respond. And the whole point of Choose Love is to thoughtfully respond with love. That's our highest and best response. Now we use this formula. You guys are so familiar with the formula, right? Essential life skill, tool, and awareness in our belt, tool belt of life that enables us to thoughtfully respond with love. So it's courage plus gratitude plus forgiveness plus compassion and action. Now, each one of those character values actually has a purpose. So courage, which by the way is like a muscle, we have to practice it to strengthen it, creates the opening. This is really, really important. It creates the opening in our hearts to show up as our authentic and true selves. That's the only way that we can be truly seen. And by the way, so craving our kids and ourselves to be seen in this world, to be validated. That helps us have self-esteem and a sense of self-worth. So courage creates the opening in our hearts. Gratitude shifts the focus of our lens from negative to positive. So you all have been teaching choose love, but you know that all those thoughts that roil through our heads every single day, the majority of which are negative, the vast majority of which are repetitive, we can shift those thoughts with gratitude. So not only does a thought of gratitude give us a 10% boost in mood, but it also shifts the focus of our lens from negative to positive. And that positive shift, that positivity, optimism, that literally fortifies us from the inside out to be more resilient, more capable of moving through difficulty with strength and grace. It also sets us up to be able to start thinking about forgiveness. And forgiveness is what frees us. We know that and all of these are a choice, by the way. There's a choice to forgive. It may become a process because you don't automatically just lose perhaps the hurt, but you do lose a lot of it. And you do take a lot of your personal power back when you make that choice. Forgiveness frees us. It cuts the cord, as you guys have been teaching, that attaches us to pain. And then compassion in action changes our world. So that is when we have the courage to step outside of whatever is going on within us. We identify a need within ourselves or someone else, and then we actively do something to help that need. And by the way, it's in that action. That's why it says compassion in action. It's in that action that we help and heal ourselves. And by the way, I'm talking about our locus of control. If you've had a training from me or one of our other trainers, we know that we're coming from either love or fear. And this is literally called our locus of control, the location of our personal power. When it is outside of us, when we have an external locus of control, and by the way, it does vacillate, you'll find yourself blaming other people for where you are now, finger pointing, fault finding. You feel like things happen to you. And you can literally, the formula is designed neuroscientifically to bring this locus of control back inside of you where you're coming from love. You have the power to make positive change that will give you a better future. That's literally the definition of hope. You're empowered. When your locus of control is outside of you, you feel like you have no control. So you feel helpless. Helplessness can lead to victimization. Victimization can lead to hopelessness. Hopelessness is the single most consistent factor in suicide and violence. So we really want to move that locus of control back inside of us using the formula where we have the power to make our choices of love. So how does the choice moment model fit into this? Help us be the best version of ourselves and thoughtfully respond from our prefrontal cortex and not just react to things from our fear center. So the choice moment is that space in between what is happening and our response. It is the present moment. This is the pause when someone says something, someone does something, and our brain automatically goes on the defensive. But we can pause and get curious. Curiosity is really important in this process because in that curiosity, in our asking, gee, I wonder why that person is behaving that way. I wonder why that person would say something like that. I wonder what happened that created the pain that they're now exhibiting in front of me. We don't take it personally, right? It's kind of like a mosquito biting you. You don't take it personally that the mosquito bit you. You just kind of move it off. So when somebody's not kind, you get curious. Gee, why is this person behaving this way or saying these things to me? We pause and remember from where we started, the slides where we started the neuroscience, where our fear center is 4 times faster at processing information than our prefrontal cortex. So this pause and this kind of curiosity, this questioning gives our prefrontal cortex time to come online. So there are only two things that are going to happen in this process. We're going to react, and that's right away. And when we react out of habit or memory. And by the way, most of the time that actually works for us. Most of the time we're reacting out of habit or memory, but it doesn't always serve us, because when our fear center determines that something is potentially harmful, hurtful to us, hurtful, not obviously physical harm is something totally different. That's why this whole process is in place. So if we're going to be physically harmed, we don't think about it. We turn and we run. We're not thinking from here. We're actually not thinking. Our brain takes control and moves us in freeze, fight, or flight. But the vast majority of what happens to us every day ignites maybe the fear center, but it's more emotional hurt that our brain is trying to keep us from. And still, even when that does that, we give our power away to the person who's in front of us by getting triggered, by reacting, by escalating. Now, by the way, our students do this, but we sometimes do too. And so, when those things happen, when the difficulty happens, roadblocks, challenges, loss, pain, hurt, we pause and we get curious about, what is this in the moment? What's happening? Why is this person doing this? What happened? And the other thing is, if it's a hurtful situation, if we've had a major loss, if there's a tragedy that's happened, we can also pause and ask ourselves, I know about this concept of post-traumatic growth. This is really important as a foundation in the Choose Love movement, this concept of post-traumatic growth. As opposed to post-traumatic stress, our bodies are designed to grow through difficulty. So when we infuse this awareness within the kids and they face difficulty, they can pause and get curious about how this is going to help them learn, grow, and be strengthened, because they know about this concept of post-traumatic growth. So in other words, instead of fearing what's happening, and when we fear something, we resist, we avoid, we might numb ourselves, or by the way, we might get angry. Anger, hatred, and revenge is simply a mask for fear. So instead of reacting in fear, we pause, we get curious. And by the way, just pausing takes a lot of courage, doesn't it? I mean, even for us. That's why, by the way, we call a thoughtful response in love a heroic choice, because it literally is a heroic choice. So we've used our courage, right? And we can pause here. And maybe if somebody said something difficult to us, we can choose forgiveness. Hey, I know this person. I know this isn't how they usually react or behave. If it's a child, if it's one of your students, you can say, hey, I know that how we think directly impacts how we feel, and how we feel influences our behavior. So reverse engineering that, I know that this person isn't feeling right, so I can forgive them for what they did or said. And then that brings in the compassion in action. I can ask what I can do for them, or ask what happened? And then you might get a story, and then you might be able to help there. So going back to the choice moment, right? The majority of time we react. Our brains want us to react to conserve brain power. When we react, we get a quick hit of dopamine. By the way, that's the same feel-good neurochemical that we get when we scroll on our cell phone, when we, by the way, do drugs or gamble or do social media. That is designed to give us hits of dopamine. The problem with that, yeah, it feels good, but only temporary, and we always want more. It never leaves us satisfied. So when we get into the choice moment and we thoughtfully respond with love, we get a lasting lift. Let me show you a lasting lift of feel good. Literally, we call it a dose, as an acronym, of nurturing, healing love. So we get the dopamine. the reward or pleasure neurotransmitter that feels so good. We get oxytocin, our love hormone. We get serotonin, which is our body's natural mood stabilizer. And we get endorphins, which are our body's natural painkillers. That is our lasting lift of feeling good. And you know what? We are in control when we thoughtfully respond with love. And every time we do it, we're wiring our brains towards love and we're pruning from the fear channels. The other thing we're doing is building our self-confidence, how we feel about ourselves, our self-confidence, how we feel about our actions and what we can accomplish and achieve, our self-worth, how we value ourselves, and our self-esteem, how we feel about ourselves. This is awesome. If you guys have any questions, please email me directly, Scarlett with 2 T's at jessieLewisChooseLove.org. Hey, thank you so much for choosing love and for putting this out into the world. Let's together create the world that we want to live in, one that is safe and kind. Thank you for choosing love.